Welcome to YogiViews, where my guest is yoga itself, through interviewing those who practice it, teach it, sell it, or simply love it. I am Antonio Saucis. When we lose the things and people we are attached to, we lose part of who we are. We lose part of ourselves, and we are pushed into grief. Yet we continue living. But then, who survives? Who is the one that emerges after a loss? What can he or she do now? I have invited today someone whose exploration into this aspect of life took her to yoga in surprising ways. Her name is Laurie Fo. Welcome, Laurie.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Laurie came to yoga as a way to return home to herself after deep loss. That journey brought her to owning the Yoga Garden, a yoga studio in San Anselmo, California. After a solid experience managing diverse businesses, she decided to take on this risk. She also teaches restorative yoga at the studio, and she draws on her background in radiology, integrating anatomical detail, breath awareness, and meditation to skillfully use the transformative powers of yoga. So this business, the yoga studio, you know, yoga is credited these days as being a multi-billion-dollar industry in the United States. And you said you looked a lot of businesses that were, so is that true?
Oh, absolutely. That yoga is a multi-billion-dollar industry? Absolutely. Just look at all the magazines and the billboards and the TV shows, and absolutely. And the clothing lines, and we have turned it into a marketing machine. But that's what we do in America.
Yes.
You know, when we get a product and we see,
Yes.
you know, we see dollar signs, then it becomes something that a lot of us wish wouldn't happen.
Yeah. Now, this idea of yoga as a business is rather Western. It's rather a Western idea. As you know, yoga has been free for thousands of years, and ashrams were supported by people who were donating, but there was no real business operation. Right. How is it for you? Is there any conflict for you, or no? Or?
Great question. Great question. Initially, when I first landed here and bought the studio, it was a little awkward because there was part of me that thought I should be offering classes for free. This is something that people should have access to anywhere and not have to pay for it. And yet, the flip side of that is we have a beautiful yoga studio, and we have a thriving business that needs to happen to be able to sustain the studio so that people can have a place to come. So I remember talking with Janice Gates about that, who owned the studio prior to me. I said, you know, it's a little awkward, and she really talked with me about the spiritual community and how do you create an environment that will sustain itself and yet not feel like you're exploiting the underlying principles. So it's really it's really a unique opportunity for a very expanding field to look at that and say, I need to sustain a living. If I can't sustain a living, and if I give all these classes for free, what happens is I have to shut down the studio because I can't pay my lease payment.
Yep.
So that doesn't mean it's always easy to charge, but I've come to an acceptance that we are offering a product. It has a hugely spiritual component to it, and yet we're providing a safe, nourishing environment for people to heal and practice yoga and get connected to their bodies. So yeah.
Now, Laurie, these days, there's a yoga teacher under every rock. And if a place has a lot of rocks, it becomes a yoga studio.
Yes.
In a way. Is demand matching?
No. There, in my opinion,
Yes.
no. There are so many yoga teachers that are being pumped out at such a rapid rate, and they don't have anywhere to go. And the demands do not match the amount of instructors coming out, because everybody's getting excited. Oh, I could teach yoga, and they want to go to these classes, they want to get trained. And then they come out and they realize two things. Number one, there's so many people competing for a spot to teach, you know, that's number one. And number two is they have a hard time sustaining a living if that's all they do.
Correct.
If they are just a yoga teacher. Many, many years down the road, when they have established clientele and they're teaching private lessons and they're involved in teacher trainings, you know, but that's a small percentage that actually go that far.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get.
And it is after a long time and work and yes.
Right.
Yes, it's not. It doesn't happen just. Yeah.
It doesn't, and these people can easily get discouraged. You know, I
Yeah.
get at least 40 to 50 resumes a week.
Wow.
Saying, hi, you know, I just graduated and I'd like to further.
that.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, on the other hand, it's interesting that these days at studios, teachers who have an upbringing that is rooted in tradition and that are more loyal to the fullness of yoga and the spiritual aspects and do talk about spirit and do teach a lot of pranayama in their classes, they're not necessarily the ones that pack the classes. Whereas this a little bit younger, on the Ashtanga side, on the more active power, let's all sweat, classes are packed.
Right.
How do you go about that?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that, for instance, at our studio, we draw a certain demographic. We get probably an older population that has done the strong yoga and are injury riddled and or are dealing with the disease process. We do get some young people that come in that actually want to go deeper in their practice. But you're right, the machine out there is go, go, push, push. And I find that more and more we get the ones who have been beat up a little bit and then come in and want to nourish their bodies in a more gentle way. That's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. When you get quiet and you go within, things come up. I mean, you know this, Antonio.
Yes, but
And so if I can be distracted, that's part of the whole American machine, the overstimulation and the habitual patterns of go, go, push, push.
yes.
And so a lot of people are drawn to that power yoga or hot yoga, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but they're drawn to that because they can still say kind of disconnected in a lot of ways because they're focusing on pushing. And
Yes.
does that make sense?
Oh, yes, yes.
Yeah.
yes.
So it's interesting to watch the dynamics of our studio change. We're getting more younger people coming in that want to do a deeper practice, which is great.
Which is great.
It's great because
yes.
that helps with the rest of their life.
Yes.
It helps them transform all different areas
Yeah.
so that when they get contracted in traffic, when something happens to someone that they love, they have this breathing pattern that they've been practicing. I know for me that's true, that really helps contain and calm that process
Yeah.
rather than just going into a reactive mode.
Yes.
Not to say that we don't do that at times.
Well, we all do, yes.
We do,
yes.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, on the other hand, since yoga came to the West, perhaps you know, and of course you do, that for thousands of years yoga was not for women. Right. Women were not allowed to teach or to address the philosophical aspects of yoga. They did have a physical practice,
right.
but it was very limited. And now yoga came to the West, and you hardly see any man in a class. Not only that, in your studio, I was going through the different teachers. I noticed that you don't have male teachers. Why?
Excellent question. I actually would like to have a male teacher.
Okay.
I know Janice had male teachers in the past that kind of came and went. And when I first bought the studio, I hired a male instructor, and he was wonderful. He taught Monday, Wednesday, Friday, our early morning wake-up yoga. And then his father got severely ill, and he had to move back to Seattle. Mm-hmm. So I am not opposed to having a male teacher, and I actually think it would be a good way of rounding out our studio. But finding a quality male yoga instructor that is stable and wanting to stay here, I haven't found that yet, but I'm not opposed to it. I think that it would be a good dynamic for our studio. And we do have men, especially that come to our wake-up yoga on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. We do have men that come in. That class is predominantly, I would say, at least 50-50,
wow.
men and women.
Wow.
And a lot of husband and wife teams are coming in the evenings. We see that in the evenings. So that's really...
Do you think that yoga has value for men?
Oh, absolutely. Yoga's for everyone.
Yes.
It doesn't matter, male, female,
Yes.
you know, heavy, thin, flexible, rigid as can be.
But you know, a lot of men don't go to yoga classes because number one, it's full of women. So there is sometimes a perception that it's a girly thing.
Right.
Or also sometimes because even though they want, usually you guys are more flexible than us.
Right.
And so they don't want to feel awkward not being able to stretch. So
Right.
what would you say to some of these men?
Well, we're seeing more men in our studio, and it's really interesting. We're getting a lot of cyclists. They have just pounded their bodies, you know, and just really pressed and pushed for so long that they're either going to the doctor and the doctor's saying, you really need to take up yoga so that you can stretch some of these tight areas. And I also find that men are really tight in the hips. So they come in with hips and lower back, sometimes shoulders. And they are one of the most exciting groups to see the change because they're shocked. Whereas women are a little bit more aware of their bodies, so that when they see the changes, they're more easily accept it. And like, oh yeah, I thought this would happen. Whereas men come in saying, yeah, my doctor told me I need to come in and stretch, or my wife said I need to come in, and not really excited about being here. And then after a couple weeks, they're some of our most committed, just because men seem to really appreciate the physical change that they experience, where they can, and even from an athletic point of view, they appreciate the greater endurance and less pain afterwards. And then the secondary benefits, they realize that their relationships are improving because they don't get spun up so fast. It's nice to see, you know, men aren't as welcoming to the internal landscape of how am I feeling in my body? What's going on in here? You know, they're just like, just give me the next thing to do and let me go.
How can I get rid of it?
Yeah, what do you mean, how do I feel? And it's interesting too that the younger men, the younger generation, they're more aware of their emotional landscape because it's more acceptable.
Yes.
You know?
Fortunately.
Yeah. So for men, I say, great, you know, go to a class that resonates with you. And then the one other thing that is almost humorous is there are men that say, well, of course I'm going to go to a yoga class. They're all women.
Of course. Exactly. What a great view.
But they're always surprised at the benefits, and it's great.
Do you think that in the impression of a woman that the man practices yoga is a plus or a minus, or it doesn't matter?
In what way?
When a woman is considering a man, do you think it's a likable thing that he goes to yoga, or that he doesn't care, or do you know? Yes. Do you think that he has any influence?
Well, I can only speak for myself as a woman, but it lets me know, or I make an assumption that they're more integrated and more connected, or at least desire to be.
Open to.
Yeah,
Good.
so I think it's a great quality to have because they're interested in working on themselves in whatever capacity they wish to work.
Yes.
But they're willing.
Of course,
Yeah.
yes. Laurie, you were saying, you were agreeing with the fact that there are so many more studios than the ones needed, and that some teachers are better than others. And what is the competitive advantage of your studio? Why do you think people should come to your studio?
Well, the word competitive is not one of my favorite words in yoga, because one of the things that we pride ourselves in at our studio is a non-competitive environment, so that everyone feels comfortable coming in, whether you have never taken yoga before. You know, there's this fear. I took my first yoga class 4 months after I bought the studio, and especially as a studio owner, I thought, everybody's going to look at me. They're all going to judge me. They're all going to see just how flexible I am. I don't want that pressure. Okay, maybe I'll start next week. You know, so being non-competitive, feeling that they can just come in and be at any level that they come in with, at any capacity, and be accepted and feel comfortable. And we have been able to do that. And so I get great joy in knowing that people come in and say, I wasn't really sure, but nobody was looking at me, the teacher.
So one of your competitive advantages is to not be competitive.
Exactly, it's to not be competitive. And you know, I could sit here and say, well, we offer 21 classes a week. Well, other studios offer 21, you know, a lot of classes a week. I could say, well, we do teacher trainings and we do workshops and, you know, et cetera, and we have 10 instructors, but there are a lot of studios out there that have the consistency of the same thing. I think what's different about our studio, two things. The environment when you come in feels like a sanctuary. People come in and they feel safe. They know that there's an instructor who is of high integrity and who will provide an environment where they can just be at their own pace. That is something we really pride ourselves in. And that environment of feeling that they come in from the outside world and they have this time just for them where they can experience connecting, anchoring, all that groundedness I talked about, and go out. Our studio is just so beautiful. It provides that. It's palpable. People feel that and constantly comment on that. So the environment is very important. And then secondly, one of the things I love about the various offerings that we have is Janice Gates has a mentoring program that she does. In fact, it's starting up next month, and that mentoring program helps any new yoga teacher or an existing yoga teacher that needs some help. Where do I go from here? These young teachers come out and they're kind of brought into this 200-hour training, and then they are left to go, and the training wheels are off. And where do they go from here? They can go to workshops to hone in on their skills, but who's there to talk to them about some of the fears, some of the challenges? And so we offer that teaching and training and guidance.
Like a supervision.
Absolutely. And it's small groups so that they can really talk about what they need and not be just this voice in the back.
I don't know that that's being offered elsewhere.
Yeah,
so that's very good.
So that's really good. Yeah.
Laurie, you had, is this your first time owning a business of this type? Okay. But
of any type.
Okay, but you've managed other businesses,
yes,
and some of them big. Is it very different to manage a yoga studio than to manage a tech company, or?
Well, it is and it isn't. And it is the same in that whether you are a human resource person or a salesperson or managing a large tech firm, you still want to treat the employees and the customers with respect. You want to honor their feelings. You want to try to create a cohesive, positive environment. That's the same with the yoga studio. I want my instructors and the students that come in to feel valued, to feel safe, to feel respected. So that's, you know, the way that we treat people as human beings, regardless of where we work, is consistent with how I want to be, at least, in the environment that I want. The difference is that I'm so lucky. I mean, I come into an environment where it's peaceful, everyone is happy to see you, everyone leaves with their face softened and a deep sigh. So, you know, how great is that? Talk about inviting in an environment where I can heal and feel of value and of service and loved. I mean, everybody's excited to see me. So that, you know, and I know that they're going in and they're coming out feeling better than when they came in. So that's completely different than being in, say, a tech world,
Yes.
Of course. But you have customers, you have salespeople, you have staff that all need to learn how to get along, all need to respect each other's viewpoints. But the pressure to perform is much higher, of course, in a tech world than in a yoga studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you were saying that a lot of people open yoga studios or become yoga teachers. So, what would be your words of wisdom as someone who's done it and who understands now more about it for young entrepreneurs?
Take your time. And I think one of the most valuable things, if you're looking to purchase a yoga studio and you don't know the demographics of where you are, ask around, find out the reputation of the studio. When I came up here from San Diego, it was like returning home because I was born in San Francisco. I walked around and said, hey, do you know where a good yoga studio is? Or have you heard of the yoga garden? I wanted to hear the responses of people. And that was very beneficial to me because everyone said, well, I don't take yoga, but I've heard that they have a good reputation. Or they have very high quality teachers. All of that's very important. You don't, if you're purchasing an existing studio, know what you're going to inherit, because you're going to inherit the teachers, you're going to inherit the students, and you're going to inherit the reputation.
Yeah.
So for me, I didn't want to come in with and purchase a studio with a damaged reputation. It would take me a lot longer to revitalize it. So I was very lucky in that we had a really good reputation. So that's important. Secondly, go over the financials carefully. When you are looking to purchase a yoga studio, look at where the money is coming in. And the reason why that's important is, for instance, let's say that the previous owner does retreats in Bali every year and retreats in Mexico. And then when you take over, those retreats are going to go with that person. So that income that is on the books is gone. So look over with a fine-tooth comb what will stay when this person leaves, what will remain, and what goes with them. That can be huge.
Yes.
Huge. So that would be another recommendation. And look at your lease. Know that, you know, next year, is it going to get bumped up? You know, just look over all of the documents. You know, does it have liability insurance? I'm big on you know, preventative, and coming from the world of radiology, of course, you know, and just be prepared.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Laurie, would you do anything different from what you've done?
You know, as strange as it sounds, I wouldn't. And it's not that I've done everything perfectly. This process has been beautiful, and it's all part of the learning process. I may be driving home tonight going, oh yeah, you know, and think of something, but right now in this moment, I can't think of anything I would do differently.
Good.
It's just been such a great blessing in my life, and things continue to go so well. I feel really Really, really lucky.
Laurie, thank you. Thank you so much for coming and sharing tonight your wisdom and your experience and your heart with us. And I think that you are doing a great job. I mean, I'm somehow close to your studio because I'm a neighbor to you, and I thank you for that as well. You've been keeping the good torch of that place open, and perhaps we'll have you here some other time.
Thank you, Antonio.
But for now, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. My guest today was Laurie Fo, who came to yoga as a way to return home to herself after deep loss. The journey brought her to owning the yoga garden after a solid experience managing diverse businesses. She also teaches restorative yoga at the studio, where she draws on her background in radiology, integrating anatomical detail, breath awareness, and meditation to skillfully use the transformative powers of yoga. Are we on 3? Sorry, the camera is not working the light, so there I go. I hope you like our show today. And if you care to let me know, shoot me an email at antonio@yogiviews.com. I look forward to seeing you the next time.